allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
I think we're going to need to turn that off.
Yeah.
What? No.
Yours doesn't sound like it's on.
Here's beyond and I can hear one.
Yeah, you can have mine. I'm loud.
They can't hear that.
Yeah, it won't record.
Do I have a motion for the
still
consent
can't hear
agenda?
You gotta speak.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Seconds falling all over the place. All those in favor?
The appointments, boys volunteer, lacrosse coach Patrick Myers, Tiverton Middle School music, Dan Snyzik, 2/5 remedial math, Armand Dubois. And I'd just like to point out to the committee that the only new position that we'll be hiring as of we have planned right now is that 2/5 remedial math position. Resignations, student council advisor Carrie Gibbons and Liz Cottrell.
Are any of them here? I always like to make sure.
Oh.
Okay. Welcome.
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 Dan.
I saw on your resume that you are a Tiverton grad. It's
Tiverton
funny
High
how-
School.
Yeah, Mr.
Good.
Part of Mr. Murray's graduation speech just recently was Tiverton Tigers always come home, so welcome home.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Do you want to move one up?
Yes, could you move
I make a motion to move up 6J.
6F, please,
Oh, I'm sorry,
first.
6F.
Second.
All those in favor? Is the parent here, Mr.?
Yes, I believe so.
Grammar.
I'm just trying to get to it in my packet. We have a request, apologize from Mrs. Erin Cook Dumas, would like our children to be able to take classes offered at the high school without enrolling. I'll be educating them at home, and there are some offerings that my children would like to take at school. We specifically would like tech ed classes, science labs, and Spanish Portuguese. This request, I believe, goes beyond what we normally deal with on a regular basis, which is usually parents requesting, per our current policy, to homeschool their children. Currently, we do allow, as a requested basis, we do allow parents of homeschooled children to participate in extracurricular activities, and we have in the past allowed students at the high school to take a band class because it's similar to an extracurricular activity because they do have performances, as you know, outside of the school day. This request really isn't something that we deal with, and our policy doesn't address it. My concern is that since our policy doesn't address it, I had to bring it to you, but I'm also concerned how we move forward with it, because homeschooled students who are high school aged do not receive high school diplomas. Okay, so we don't accept homeschool credits. So in other words, if you're homeschooled, you're homeschooled. With that said, I think our policy, or depending on how the committee wants to address it, our policy should address, I believe, needs to be modified to address what we do now with the after-school extracurricular activities and the band or the music, and however you want to proceed. If you want to proceed with this, we certainly should have some language to clarify, because as you see in Attorney Robinson's opinion, under state law, the student has no right to enroll in classes or participation in extracurricular activities while a homeschooled student. So the statute is clear. We kind of modified it, and I think RIDE would probably say, yes, you can if you want to, but we really need to be clear as to what we allow of homeschooling requests and what students can take, especially once they get at the high school
So
level.
we don't have a policy, right?
We do.
Oh,
We
we
do,
do.
but it doesn't, it's a lot of forms that.
Oh, it's just basically you have to fill
It's
out this
procedure,
and this
yes,
and
and get
this.
approval from the high school principal
Principal.
or middle school principal or elementary principal. It's very
But
procedural in
we've
nature.
been, like you said, we've been very, I guess, welcoming, if you want to use the word, we've had many homeschool kids taking,
Yes, we
especially
have.
extracurricular.
Yes.
And is that governed by the Interscholastic League?
Um,
Must be. Who can participate
do you
in
wanna-
sports and who can't?
They're able to participate in extracurriculars, and the Interscholastic League has accepted them.
Oh, okay,
They're then
Yeah.
subject to whatever the rules are for whatever the sport is.
right.
Right.
Although, like, I don't think we have that in writing, but.
Right, we
Right.
don't.
We don't.
I see what you're saying.
Right,
Because
we-
we've been doing it, we've
Yes.
been very welcoming, but we
But
don't really
this,
have an official policy.
and I think this request, though, goes even beyond that.
Yeah,
Because this would be almost and I don't know what the committee's position is. It would, if you were in favor of it, it could allow for a pick and choose menu, and could a parent later somewhere, and I'm not saying this parent would, but could a parent somewhere down the line say, we want a high school diploma?
Yeah, my
Without our policy being clear, regarding that.
Does RIDE have a formal policy? If a parent says they're homeschooling and the parents filled out the forms, and yet a child takes, say, 5 classes at our high school, is that student still a homeschooled student, according to RIDE? Say the student's taken 6 classes, a full load, and yet the parent has said, I'm homeschooling my student, and has filed the proper paperwork. It seems to me at some point there's a conflict between saying you're homeschooled if you're taking 5 courses at our high school. And does RIDE have a position on that?
This really hasn't, the fight, I'm going to say about 15 years ago when this movement started, was over school departments saying to people, you can't homeschool because it doesn't meet our standards and so on and so forth. So there was certain legal cases, but there's no question, Rhode Island, you have a right to homeschool. All the commissioner's done, there's one case out of Warwick from 2004 where the parents sought to have their child enrolled in the advanced, the gifted classes, and Warwick turned them down. They appealed that to the commissioner, and the commissioner asserted at that time that there was no right for anyone to participate even in extracurriculars. You don't have to let them do that. Many districts do, including you. But this is, for me, it's a case of first impression. I haven't seen them where they said, we want to homeschool them, but we want to send them to school. So I agree with you, Carol. There's nothing out of the commissioner's office that I'm aware of on that. But I think at some point, where's the tipping point, on that? And the other thing I think you need to be careful with is the precedential issue. If you start allowing people to pick certain classes to come in and pick, and you give them, you grant it in one case, you're going to be hard pressed to say no in another. And how many classes will you allow them to take? And it strikes me that it's probably appropriate for a subcommittee to look at.
A new policy.
And there's also another question about registration. I believe RIDE, if you attend school, you have to be registered. And that's something we'd have to have Steve research. In other words, you come to a public school, you got to register to go to school. In other words, it goes to your question, Carol, I think.
Right. Are they our student or not?
Where would they kind of fall, so.
Are they getting a grade? Are they
Yeah, I'm not-
attendance?
and they really did, or even like average daily, our
Attendance
attendance
rate.
rates.
Right.
All kinds of issues with that.
And teachers, are teachers required to write college recommendations if the student is not?
Again, it's something that I haven't,
an enrolled
this is a new
student.
to me, this kind of request, so that's why I brought it before the committee.
Well, but it sounds like RIDE is sort of they have a right to homeschool, but they leave it up to the individual districts to.
They encourage, it is clear that the RIDE encourages districts to allow them to
And we-
take part in extracurriculars.
And we always have.
Yes.
That has always been our position,
Yeah.
that they're a member of our community, that we always have encouraged homeschoolers to participate in band, participate in sports. So I guess it's really thinking about how much beyond that, like, would there be issues of bumping? I mean, because I know some of our tech ed classes, they
At
fill up.
capacity.
Well, just
yeah.
classes, depending on the class, not even take this request aside. You never know, in the future, because you don't know what the request could be.
Right.
What if it's an honors class?
Right,
I want my child in AP 11.
right.
And we're already at 8, pretty close to cap or at cap. What do you do? Or tech ed or wherever.
Or could you do like I would imagine, I looked at some other states, and you could do you can enroll up to 2 additional classes, and you won't be given priority for scheduling, but it's lenient in that way.
I would.
They sort of set a max and then say that enrolled students take priority, but if we have spots, then, I don't know.
In this case, the commissioner clearly, had Ward chosen to allow this child to enroll, there would have been no prohibition from the commissioner.
Right.
They would have said, okay,
Okay.
fine. But
So
you
we
have-
can make our own policy,
Right.
and they won't,
Correct.
But
As
I,
long as it's not in conflict with their.
I do think it's worth
AP.
contacting RIDE to see if a student is taking 3 or more classes. Does that student count on our roster
Is that
as,
an opinion,
in
Steve?
terms of attendance, or on a, or
An
for
advisor?
some other purposes?
That would be an advisory. We'd ask
Yeah.
Attorney Robinson to request an advisory.
from
I
RIDE.
can do that if you'd like.
Yeah.
And I'll just lay out some of those issues, Carol, and ask the commissioner to give us some
Perfect.
guidance.
Right.
Because I don't want to make up a policy and then find out that it's going to be in conflict with positions taken
Right.
by RIDE,
So is there a time sensitive, I don't know what the timing is for wanting to enroll in these I mean,
I would assume the student would want to enroll in September.
What do we do if someone says, okay, I would like to homeschool? I'm fine. What do we do if someone says, I want to homeschool my child during a particular year, and the next year say, well, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to enroll the child.
That, we allow them to come
We have
back.
that?
Well, yes, because what we would do is we would use the grades from the homeschooling, and we would put that into the, into their record, and then we have had students do that.
And then, did we have a case that, was it other way around? The child was in the school system, and
Yes, we've had
and the
that.
parent says, now I'm going to
Yes.
homeschool.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
take
So
them,
how did this
but
work
the
in terms of
cases,
diploma?
the cases is when the child that I'm familiar with, is that when the parents pull their child out, they pull them out of everything.
Yeah.
And then they homeschool
And they
them.
don't get a diploma anyway.
No, but, no, and most of the time, most of our homeschooling requests are, again, elementary or middle. And the ones that I've dealt with primarily over the last 15 years, either as a principal or superintendent, have been middle school, elementary. This plays a whole different, if a parent pulled the child out, if they enrolled, let's say they start school next September, next November, they say, we want to homeschool. Well, they would withdraw, normally, the process is they would withdraw from school and then begin homeschooling their child. We don't have, that's kind of illustrates my point, we don't have this half and half ability.
but we
to-
have been allowing for sports and band.
Yes.
Right.
But it's different
But
from a
that's
graded
different because-
course. Do you
because-
get a report card if you're a homeschooled student who sits
No.
in on classes?
No,
You
But
wouldn't.
band is held during the day.
but they also practice at night.
Yeah, but they also are held during the day.
But I don't believe Mr. Alves gave grades to those
They
students.
audit the class,
They audit.
They
it.
audit the class.
whether it be strings, orchestra, or chorus.
So I would think that whatever, tech ed, that would be the same way. It would be an audited class, assuming we have capacity.
Based on the premise that their participation during class time will prove out outcome-wise during extracurricular events and performances. They have to stay abreast with the students who are in that class if they're going to be able to be.
To perform with the group.
Extracurricular-wise.
And-
Similar to
right.
attending a practice.
Right.
That would be the class, and then the game of the performance would be the outcome.
But if we consider it more of an audit situation, typically at college, if you audit a class, you don't hand in the assignments. The professor does not grade your papers. things like that.
That's why, well, I think we should get a advisory from RIDE to begin with, and then determine how you want to move forward, because our policy needs to be adjusted. We don't have anything that allows for this. I mean, you can override anything, I mean, policy-wise or whatever, but our policy doesn't address this particular
Well,
type
and
of
really,
case.
was the concern being, would we have to give grades? That kind of
Well,
thing?
the parent's request is not to register the child. And I
Right.
believe you have to register in
Right,
order to
but if
attend.
they're auditing the class,
But well, we don't, that's a big shift for us.
right,
To allow children or parents to decide, we want to audit classes.
right.
So that's something that the committee really, I think, needs to think about as I mean, it's a pretty big
Well, that's why I
policy
said-
shift.
But you also have an issue of legal issues, liability issues, discipline issues. Not that we necessarily have discipline issues with homeschool children, but how do you deal with all of this
I-
blended in?
I wouldn't know how.
What about coming and leaving?
Well, they have
For
to
a
sign,
particular period
I mean,
and
I know for
back
band,
to-
they sign in in the office and they sign out.
An
So-
audit is just a phrase that we're just
Right,
using. I mean, it's
right.
not a formal audit. They may sign in and sign out to 70% of the classes during the year.
Right.
It's not tracked on what the
Right.
attendance is or anything.
I mean, so I guess my point is, we're already allowing it, it's just thinking through, is it, do you want to have it capped? Because, like you said, at what point does it become,
But
well, now you really should be enrolled?
Right, because we're not allowing it to the extent with multiple academic classes.
But,
It's been
right.
limited to a performance class.
Right, well, that would go back to modifying our current policy to address what you and Deb are talking about.
Well, and even putting in what we do now, that's not even there.
No, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that we need to do that. This request transcends that, what you've just addressed.
So what are our questions specifically for RIDE?
Steve?
Average daily
I'm
and
sorry.
our enrollment?
One is, I would run the scenario right to them and say, we have this kind of request. Does the child need to be registered? I think the child does,
Registered,
because it's
As
taken
one of
multiple,
our
as a student.
students.
Because this request has multiple classes.
and we need to, and we would want to ask RIDE, is there a tipping point where you would say you must be now a public,
Or do we run
3, 4 classes make,
but are we obligated to give a diploma?
oh yeah, I would think they would say no.
But
No.
those are the questions you have to ask.
Okay,
Because this is a road we have never traveled
Yep.
before.
But how does a student on homeschooling, so a parent takes a child and says, I'm going to homeschool
Yep.
the child. How
I think the parents are-
how do we prove that this child
They-
completed
they-
all the requirements?
Under Rhode Island law, they just have to
Sound.
provide grades to
Yeah,
us,
I know.
the parent.
Keep in mind, you're kind of asking for a mixed advisory. You're asking, typically an advisory, is this legal? But you've got really a lot of administrative questions that are not really legal questions. So you may not get the direction from an advisory.
Oh, that's fine.
You can still
And
ask
then
for it.
basically it's up to us.
Then you can make a
But that's,
policy, right?
even before that, it's up to you.
You're right.
Right now, it's up to you.
Okay.
If you as a policy matter, which is why why I suggested to you a subcommittee
Right.
of a policy consideration probably is the appropriate.
And then if we feel there's any legal issues after that,
Yeah, well, I mean, we can ask all the legal issues.
Yeah.
Remember now, their policy is to encourage this.
right, exactly.
So, I mean,
We can develop the policy and then we can ask them to review it and see, are we in conflict with
Anything.
them?
Anything that they would have
I mean,
said.
I guess really the question is, if you said, yes, we want to do it, Commissioner, are there legal impediments to this?
Right,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
okay. Yes? Hi.
I'm Erin Dumas. I'm the one that sent the request in.
Can you please speak up? I'm
no.
sorry, you're so, or come closer, I'm sorry you're so far
Oh,
away.
yes.
Yes,
Next,
sit over here.
There you go, Wayne, Carol and I.
Hear you, okay? We had asked simply because we don't, when you get to high school level, sometimes there's classes that may not be my expertise, or I may not actually like the class and want to teach it. Like my son wanted to take chemistry, and that's not necessarily something I felt comfortable teaching. I would say that most homeschoolers are not going to come running to school. I think that some would be interested in like art class. The extras that you can get in elementary and middle school that for some reason are closed to high school, and I'm not quite sure why. Like, why can you take Spanish in the middle school, but then you can't take Spanish in the high school? Why?
I wasn't aware that you could take Spanish at the middle school.
You mean as a homeschooled student?
I'm not aware of it. That doesn't
Yeah,
mean it
see,
didn't
again,
happen.
we may be doing things that we're not aware of. I wasn't aware that you could.
From my understanding, it's been allowed for a long time. Now, I'm hopefully not causing trouble for the homeschool.
No, you're not causing trouble for anyone. No.
It's just, the kids come and they're in activities, and it seems like they're only allowed in music, but there are other things that they may like to take that would be of interest to them. Maybe a family needs to take math. They don't feel qualified to teach math, but they may not need to take anything else. And we understand that children that are enrolled would always have first priority. But if there's a space available, why can't they come and take the class? And for liability, I guess I don't really understand that, because if they're already doing sports and band, then they're already covered under that already. Because I would imagine that anybody that comes on the grounds is already covered by insurance. Like I say again, I don't feel there's going to be this large rush of homeschoolers coming to school. A lot of people do it for religious reasons or medical reasons, some personal reasons. But I guess it's just nice to know what our options are if we need help from the state, because if we're trying to all work together and get our children as a community educated, then why not work as a community and get them educated? Because some people just don't have the money, quite frankly. Some classes are very expensive, and you might not be able to buy the curriculum that you necessarily would want to have your child age appropriately done. So that's what I mean. If there's a space available, then they could come and have it done. We already pay our taxes. I mean, I have 5 children. That's taxes for 5 children that, I'm not taking a space in class.
But I think a lot of people that pay taxes that don't have children in the system.
I understand that. But
That's
if I
not
was to
really.
send them,
It would be
that's
like, someone who, a grandmother who has a child in another district who pays taxes here saying, well, I want my kid to come and take math because I pay taxes. So
Well, there are-
a lot of people pay taxes that don't necessarily have
yeah, no,
children
I
in the
understand
system.
that. But since I do live here and I do have the 5.
But you also did
Fine.
make a choice not to, just like a public school, person who says, well, I want to send my child to public school, and that would have been my other issue, is if you have someone who, and not an issue, question, if you have someone who does that now, who has a child who goes to public school, would you be setting precedent that they now can come and take
You mean private school?
private school?
Oh,
That
Yes.
they could now come and take
Yes, you
a
would.
class
class.
or 2 or 3
So-
or
I
4.
think that would be
That's
Yes.
the larger
Well, if
issue?
they're a private school, they're going to be there all day. They're not. gonna
Maybe,
be
maybe
right
not.
there.
I mean, we don't know that. If
You open
you're
the door,
I think
people-
if you're opening the door.
You're opening a door that the committee really needs to think about.
Because you're basically saying any student who's not enrolled in the public school, any student, can then audit, I guess, or
Or
whatever.
take as
call it,
many
take
classes
the
as he
class.
or she wants to. And then we get back to, well, I'm homeschooling, but my student's taking 6 classes at the high school.
See, I don't think that would, I just personally don't think that would.
Well, then, but that's something we have to consider with the policy. So then do we limit it and say, if you're formally homeschooling, and you filled out the paperwork, should there be a limit? Is 6 then ridiculous?
Well,
Would should it be limited to 2?
I would think 1 or 2 tops, probably,
Okay.
because then now you're here almost all day, so then at that point,
Right.
you're already fully enrolled.
Although you requested 3, are you saying you're not
Oh, no, I was
interested
thinking
in
about
2
Of my different children.
Oh, okay.
I was saying, not one.
for one student?
Yeah.
And by all, we've been very welcoming. We've really taken the approach that they are members of our community. We have wonderful families such as yours who do participate in band and sports and things. So I don't think anyone's saying, it's really just, if you're setting a policy as a policy board, you kind of have to think, what are the implications of what are we doing? What kind of precedent are we setting? But we've been very welcoming of your families like yours and other kids, because it's been a very positive experience, I think, for all of our kids. So your recommendation then, Stephen, is just get a policy subcommittee together?
Right. And I have no problem. I'll start drafting a request for an advisory from the commissioner, a legal advisory regarding some of the issues that have come up here in the discussion.
And just so people, if we do that, those are open, but we also bring it back here at least twice
To be
before we
talked
pass
about.
anything. So it's not like we're just going to come back and all of
Policy
a sudden.
subcommittee meetings are open.
The policy subcommittee meetings
We
are open,
close them.
plus we bring them back
Back.
here.
That's correct, for two visits.
Two readings, so you can come and
Right, so it
see
won't
how
be
you
like all
feel
of a
about.
sudden we'll have
And
a
give
policy.
feedback if,
Right.
when we have a draft of a policy, you're welcome to come back and give us your feedback on the policy, whether it seems reasonable or whether there are some changes you think would help you out.
But I totally understand how you feel, because I've always said that when I vote for homeschooling, that since all our teachers have to be first certified and now highly qualified in their subject, at some point, as a teacher and a parent, you might feel as though you don't have the materials or whatever you need to bring that child to where they need to go. And I also understand it's very serious as far as the school goes with the policy and what it's going to, but I understand how you feel, because if I homeschool my children, I had 6, I would feel I came to a subject or an area where maybe I didn't have, the things I needed. So I understand where you're coming from. So the policy committee will look at this, and then, as I said, you can come and give more input.
And perhaps there is nothing legally wrong with making a homeschool policy that would not apply to private, children who are enrolled in a private institution. I don't know.
Can we differentiate?
Can we
I had a
differentiate?
case before the commissioner last year or the year before where it's a very complex area, because this child was going to a private school which did not provide certain athletic opportunities.
And music, I know, is often another one. Band is not always available.
Libraries.
Yeah.
Right, and they wanted to enroll the kid, they wanted to homeschool, but couldn't really be homeschooled because they were
private
they
school.
were enrolled in a private school, so it really didn't come under it, but it's kind of it's a little bit of a tricky area.
All right.
If you're going to a private school, can you send your kids to Tiverton to participate in the football team? If they
Right,
don't have a
right,
football team,
right. And was there any resolution?
Yeah, we lost.
Oh, okay.
The school district said no, and we appealed it, and the commissioner upheld the school district,
Saying no.
saying no, correct, in that case. But that's
That the
that's a-
student
that's a
would not
different
be allowed?
That's a
situation.
very different
That's different,
situation.
though.
But that brings in that's why it's it's an obvious policy.
It's a policy.
It's a- you know,
So we'll
these-
just try to craft it carefully.
Right.
Exactly.
And thoughtfully.
And thoughtfully to include. Okay. Anybody else have any
Might
questions?
also work the other way.
What?
Parent feels that the teacher in school does not do an adequate job, is going to say, I'm going to
Well, that's true.
homeschool the child in calculus. or
That can
I'm going to
happen.
homeschool the
But
child
see,
in
that's where you
physics.
gotta,
That's
that's
where-
where you really have to think about it. That's an excellent point.
You mean
Is that
the
what if a
reverse?
child's failing?
It's true. It could happen.
English 12, it's their senior year. I want to take Johnny or Susie out. I'm going to homeschool them. Now, we don't take homeschool grades,
Well, we don't issue a
the student-
diploma.
but we don't,
student doesn't
but those
get
are
our
things we
diploma.
have to clarify, because if you don't, I believe we open ourselves up
Well,
to
you just have to make
challenges.
sure that in the policy, it says we do not issue
Right.
diplomas for homeschool.
And you have to be clear on what Jan's talking about. is that we won't allow that. I mean, if you do that,
Well, you can
it's
do
all-
it, but you're not going to get a diploma
Right.
from the high school.
Because our graduation requirements,
your
we have the
requirements.
minimum number of courses, and they're our courses. You
Right.
can't
And we,
substitute
and
a
again, like
homeschool
policy,
math
we won't be
class
here
for our
10 years from
class.
now, I don't think.
That's right.
So we have to be very
to be
clear,
careful.
as we are with all our policies, as to what
Right,
our
because
intent is and what can
99% of the
happen.
people, like yourself, are going to use it responsibly, but then you're going to have those
That's what you always
exceptions
have
that we
to
just
think
need
about.
to sort of think
That's
through and
correct.
make sure we've thought through them.
That's right.
All right.
Any other questions? Anybody else?
So how quickly did you want to start enroll? Because I don't know how quickly we're going to have this, probably not till the end of August.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, actually, my two are actually enrolled in the high school now. But at the time, it was something that we had some of my children have medical issues, and I'm not sure they'd come to school full-time.
Okay.
But, you know, if they want to come in and take art, I wanted them to be able to take the honors art because they're gifted in art. You know, not everyone wants to take band,
Right.
you know, so I just didn't
I
understand.
mean, I think the band, the rationale for the band and for the sports always was that you can't homeschool a band unless you have 20 kids. You know, that's or you can't homeschool a football team. I think that was always the rationale for allowing that, is because that's a very difficult, not that it can't be done, but that's a very difficult thing to homeschool versus homeschooling art, math, science. Those can all be, you know, with one-on-one or even small classes, where it's much more difficult to have a performance group of any kind. I think that's kind of where the exception always was.
That makes me think of another issue. When we have students who are enrolled, who are our students, who develop serious medical problems that prevent them from attending class regularly,
They would qualify for a 504 or
they,
an IEP.
they're still our students. The
That's
parents are
correct.
not
That's correct, we
forced to
modify.
homeschool them.
No, right,
No.
that's correct.
They can remain our students, and
They
they
are
can
our
then
students.
attend as their health permits.
Well, we provide tutoring.
Tutoring.
And
Home
plus the tutoring.
When they come back, we modify student schedules with 504s and with IEPs. So maybe a child that has an issue where they can't stay a whole day, for
Right.
whatever reason, we modify their day. I mean, we've always done those types
Right.
of things, but you're right, there are
Students
students.
still. They don't have to be
No,
homeschooled because
not
of
at all.
medical issues,
No,
right?
no.
But
not at
yeah, I
all.
think this is recognizing and respecting a parent's choice to homeschool, and what kind of flexibility do we
you
have
have then?
legally, and
Right.
just with respect to the enrolled students, what kind of flexibility can we provide to make
Yeah.
sure that, you know, there are a little bit of, you know, access to, certainly with space available. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. And we'll let you know when those
So,
meetings are. and
we have
everything.
lots of policy
We
stuff
have
to take
several
care of in
items.
July, since we're
Well,
not.
we have the incentive policy.
Yeah.
Yes, which I wrote. Did I share that
Yes,
with
you shared
everybody?
that with
No, I didn't,
And the health
if
and
you could send me a
wellness.
copy.
Yes, incentive, health
the health
and
We
and
have,
wellness.
we have health and wellness ready to
Right,
go.
Diane? You have to
It's
get
just a
that
matter
done.
of,
Yeah, it's ready to go, we just
Reading.
need to meet. Well,
And-
maybe we can meet during July while
we need a kindergarten
everybody else is
policy,
off.
A kindergarten?
official one. We just follow the state law. We need something to write.
And then now a homeschool.
And
Well, we
homeschool.
need to update that one, obviously.
Right. And we need a K policy.
So maybe try to bring those four back the first meeting in August.
K policy will be easy to
Well,
draft.
so will health and wellness.
Yes.
And we have health and wellness because Diane and Sally spent eons working on it, so it's already written.
And the principals looked at it,
Reviewed
and you
by
looked at it,
the
reviewed
Health
by
and Wellness
everyone,
Committee, so
and the principals.
that's the easiest one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll have
Yeah.
Mr. Edwards,
Yeah, she's
Representative
in
Edwards.
Yep. Representative Edwards is here to,
Have you
Yes, we will.
rested up, Representative Edwards?
You sure you don't need to vote on the budget tonight?
No, we've already taken care of our house. This gives me great pleasure to bring to the Tiverton School Department a grant check for Ms. Santa.
And actually, Mrs. Madcomber is here, the coordinator of our Parents as Teachers
Okay.
program.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And this is a check for $2,000 from the General Assembly on behalf of the General Assembly, my colleagues, Senators DePalma Pilag, Otiano, and my colleague in the House, Representative.
Canario.
Thank you. Been a long week.
It's been a very long week.
Extremely long week. We did a great check, and this is for good preload into that.
Thank you.
And
This
that's-
will help us with our budget next year from Mrs. Macumber to continue with our drop-in-and-play sessions that we've had great success with at the Castle School, sharing parent information and child development and activities for parents to do at home. So thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rep.
Thank you.
Edwards.
And Representative Edwards, since it's on the agenda, I can mention thank you with all your hard work on the tolls.
It was definitely a long and very big group effort on it.
I know it was.
Thank you.
Led by
Thank you,
you.
Jay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to
Wastewater.
move up 6J.
Second.
I'll turn it over to Doug. We sent to you yesterday, or yesterday evening, a summary of the wastewater facility bid, treatment facility bid that we opened yesterday. And I will now turn it over to Doug and Bill, and they can give you some more backup on that.
Yes, thank you. We've had quite a flurry of activity since our last meeting in regard to the wastewater treatment facility. 2 or 3 days after our last meeting, DEM approved our plans to modify our wastewater treatment facility, so we immediately had the information to fill out the bid, and we placed that in the Sunday Providence Journal on June 16th.
Which you have in your packets.
DEM's approval is in your package. I believe that was dated June 15th.
13th.
13th, thank you. 3 days after the advertisement ran, we had a pre-bid meeting on June 19th, and we had 10 interested bidders come and listen to the presentation and receive plans for the wastewater treatment facility modifications, and that gave the potential bidders a week. And this past yesterday, the 26th, we had the bid opening at 10 a.m. in the administrative office, and we had 4 contractors bid on the project, and you had to be certified by DEM for wastewater treatment at this level, and the pool of bidders is not very large, so we were pleased to have 4 different bidders, and I believe I've distributed the summary of the bid results to the school committee members.
Right here, yeah. To your right.
The bids ranged from a low of $653,443 to a high of $1,399,000. We did our follow-up work yesterday after the bid and this morning, and while making a recommendation that we award the project to the low bidder, which is East Coast Construction of Portsmouth. The second big question that we had after the bids came in is how to finance the project. As most of the committee members remember, we put aside $400,000 for this project.
Right, and just remind us how we chose that number as, I realize it's a year later.
Sure.
We thought a year ago it would be 400,000.
Well, it's a couple of years.
And so
Right.
prices always go up,
Sure.
but it seems like it's quite a bit higher than our
Correct.
estimate.
That's a very good question, and I'll ask Mr. Smith to comment on that.
And we did talk about that yesterday.
I'm sure you did.
Because the sticker shock was,
Miss,
the range from 1.3 million to
Thank you.
650,000
that's a big
was a big range, but even the low bidder was, a couple $100,000,
I
quarter
asked
of a
our
million
engineer,
over where we
Mr.
were.
Smith, to kind of review what's transpired since the original estimate came about, so I think he's prepared to talk about that and answer any other questions you may have regarding our process.
Good evening. There is a fairly significant difference between the $400,000 number that was used initially and the low bidder. And several reasons that I could see that caused that. One, the state of the economy 2 years ago was pretty dismal. It's starting to recover now. Contractors are actually busy. So I think that's reflected in their pricing. Material costs have increased. At the time we came up with the initial estimate, we didn't know the exact condition of the middle school pumping station, which is in very bad disrepair. That has to be replaced. DEM required that we install a separate grease trap at the middle school in lieu of using just the one at the high school, so that was an extra. the actual number and the size of the tanks for treatment, through the design, it was an iterative process, and those increased as well in order to get the proper treatment and to satisfy DEM. We had a very, very quick bid process, so that had an effect, I think, on the numbers. And we've got a very short window for the work to be done, trying to get most of the work done while the kids are out of school during the summer process. We do have a little bit of overlap.
Right, because if the committee remembers, we had hoped we would have DM approval earlier, so that a lot of the pre-work, any site work up by Ranger or whatever could be done ahead of time. But since it was such, the approval just came a couple of weeks ago, and we want to try to get as much of it done before the start of school. So now the contractors know that, so it's going to be more overtime, and they're going to have to dedicate more people to the project because it's just that compressed timeline. And even then, we'll have approximately 50% of the work done by the start of school. So there will be some construction going on in the back here at the high school, which isn't ideal by any stretch, but we really don't have much choice. I mean, we really have to do this project and do it as quickly as we can. And I think, Bill, after we went through those reasons, you can see where we spiked.
So much of the cost increase was due to new requirements imposed by DEM that we had not foreseen.
By DEM and actually the actual condition of
Right.
the
And the timeline, because we thought we'd be like April to August, and now we're taking July 1st.
Well, in a
to
way, that was imposed
September.
upon us by DEM as well.
Right, but again,
they
they
drug
tightened
their
it on
feet.
us, so therefore that upped the price.
Okay.
So, I mean, thankfully, our state aid for this year, getting back to the financing piece, we knew we were getting $287,000, right, in state aid,
Above what the
original estimate was. We never spent that, because we didn't want to spend it. We wanted to keep it in reserve in case something
What
came
year
up.
are you talking about, 12,
This
13?
current year,
12, 13.
as of June 30th, we'll have $287,000 above the state aid number that we had used in our budgeting. So we can use that additional money to make up the difference. So it won't cost anything. We don't have to ask for more money. It won't impact any of our other projects that we're looking at. So thankfully, we were able to keep that money aside. Nothing came up.
And as we saw, I think last time, our June 30th, we're going to be right on budget.
That's
Yes.
correct, and that remains the situation. And June 30th is also when the last portion of the state aid will be delivered to us, so at that point, we'll be able to
I shouldn't make it,
confirm
right,
that our anticipated aid is lower than what our actual aid number is.
because that 287 comes in monthly, that extra
okay.
money.
We get
It does-
about $500,000.
I don't mean to imply, here comes a big old check, at the end, in June. It gets spread out.
Oh, so
over-
we already have the bulk of it.
Yes.
Correct. It's just that last
The last
increment will put us
one,
over what the
yeah.
estimate originally was.
Okay.
So that was just to cycle back to the
Yeah.
financing, because we had not allocated that additional aid that exceeded our original estimate, my recommendation is we use those funds to supplement the $400,000 that we've already set aside, and the total of those two should be sufficient to meet the low bid that we received yesterday.
And is there any chance that that number will increase, or is that very firm?
Yeah, will they
I mean, if they find something else, do they have to take care of it, or
No,
do we get
There's a big
charged?
variable, and we bid it separately, and I'll let Mr. Smith talk about some of the rock removal. and
gri-
potential
glaciers
ledge.
out there.
We did have a separate bid item, a portion of which is included in that number. We had estimated 350 cubic yards of ledge rock removal, just based on some of the test holes that we had done
Yeah.
earlier in the process, so that we had included that. That number could be lower, it could be higher. We think we've got a reasonable number. It's hard to say until they actually get in the ground. And that would be not just rock, but it would be any ledge that would have to be removed.
There's about $34,000 of state aid that would exceed cost of the project right now. I'd prefer to see a contingency a little closer to 10%, but that's basically what we have to work with now. We'll do our best to try to see if we can come in under that number.
And the tanks, if we approve the bid tonight, the tanks will be ordered tomorrow, and there's an 6 to 8 week lead time on the tanks that will be delivered. In the meantime, work would begin up at Ranger, the site on Ranger, and any
Pipe
work
to
by the
Ranger.
fielding.
And East Coast is ready to go.
Yes, did you speak with them again
Yeah.
today, Mr. Smith?
I did not talk with East Coast today, I did yesterday.
Close
They're-
enough.
They know their
fully aware.
deadline, and they're ready to go as soon as they get the word to proceed.
I mean, they bid knowing full well that our estimate was August 26th to try to get it done, and then we've been a little more flexible.
And we also put things in, no blasting or anything during the school day,
Right.
to try to minimize
Disruption.
It would be primarily at the high school, because they'd be digging back here,
Right.
the bulk of the work. So if there's if there'll be noise, it'll be here, it won't be
Yeah,
at
and
Ranger.
the high schoolers are a little bit better with dealing with
I think they'd be
noise.
more-
They're not going to run to the windows to look at the
Right,
construction.
to look at the big hole. They will at the first day, and,
Maybe, but I'm thinking
well, yeah, maybe, you never know.
less so than the elementary
Less so than the
children.
younger ones, the younger kids.
I mean, we had even considered potentially going out to bid to see if we could lower the price, but we had some conversations with DEM, and Mr. Smith did today, and they're not as receptive in moving the dates as maybe we had
Well,
hoped.
wouldn't you have to move it out till next year? That would really concern me, because how much are things going to go up in a year?
Well, and then you go through the DEM, then you gotta go back to
Then you have to go back
DEM.
to them. We want to get
More
going
important,
now.
in addition to the cost going out another year, you gotta go back to the regulatory authority. And
Yeah, they said yes,
Okay.
and so,
No, I agree.
Right, because their approval is only good for 90 days or something?
It
No,
actually, I think, is up
the
to...
approval is good for a year, although the enforcement group at DEM is more anxious to see
Yes.
the treatment plant taken offline as quickly as possible
Right.
because of
Yeah.
prior extensions
Right.
that they've already issued.
yes, they have been cooperative.
So they're
Yeah.
very happy that the project has been bid, and they're willing to work with the school to some degree, but to take it to next year,
No.
that didn't seem like that was going to be
I
acceptable.
do think we'll remain in their good graces. I mean, they only approved this less than 2 weeks ago. We have actually gone out to bid. We had a pre-bid meeting, we bid it, and hopefully we'll award it all within, a very short period of time. So I think we'll...
So that shows good
continue to-
faith effort on our part. you know.
By all means, yes.
So you just need a motion?
Yes, please.
Before I make that motion, Bill and Doug, I just want to thank you both for recommending that we actually put the $400,000 aside. It wasn't too long ago that we had people in the community and even a school committee member who was suggesting that that bid was couple of $100,000 too high.
I thought of that too.
So thank you both for sort of pushing us in the direction of higher rather than lower, so that we are in a position that we can pay for this.
And for having all those meetings with DEM, and for having our custodian certified to take care of what we were
Level two.
doing now. It was all very well done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
You too also. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid from East Coast Construction for our new wastewater treatment system at a cost of $653,443.
Second.
All those in favor? Any questions from anyone first? No? All those in favor? Yes, good.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go to Spotlight on Success?
Yes.
Lori has been in contact with Mr. Feinstein, because we are a Feinstein school at the middle school, and they have offered to donate $10,000 to the middle school if we would be willing to put something similar, and I'll let Lori speak to it further. And Al, can you blow that up at all, or zero in on it? Yeah. It would be similar to that,
Except for the code underneath, it's just a...
It would be a Feinstein Leadership School.
First, I want to thank school committee for joining us every night and celebrating our 8th graders' achievements at the promotion ceremony. Thank you so much.
Thank you for moving it along.
Yes.
Yes, that was
It was
very well done.
It was very warm.
It was very hot, very well done.
As Mrs. Paul's presentation last month indicated, she's our Feinstein coordinator. Tiverton Middle School has a very long and rich tradition of community service. And we now have an opportunity to to be recognized as such and wear an emblem that photographs our commitment to service to this community and beyond. Our kids this year participated in local, national, and international service initiatives. So we are in the running for a $10,000 grant, and it does require...
And there's a picture of Al and his lovely daughter.
I took a picture of my kid's middle school.
It's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Rara.
Yeah.
It's my daughter who graduated.
So it's...
Congratulations.
It's not the quote, it's just the...
It's just the letters, and they're individually applied.
Do they match the color that will they
I
match the
think
color
we
that we turn?
Get
Yep,
them to
they
match.
match the color.
I don't even know what color it is at ours.
Maroon.
Maroon, okay.
And the gentleman has been on campus and kind of scoped things out.
So you said,
Some of our schools, unified basketball, and 2 or 3 of them have that wonderful
Carol, you have a question? I'm sorry.
label.
yeah,
Buildings.
you mentioned we are in the running for the grant, so is it just if we win the grant, then we will agree to put up the sign?
Well, no, we have the grant.
Oh,
We
so-
have to put up the sign.
Okay.
Ms. Herman.
To get the 10,000, to keep the 10,000.
I understand, yes.
Oh, so we have the 10,000, but you have to put up the sign in order to get it?
Yes.
I've seen many of them throughout the state.
It's recognition.
It's recognition.
That would be
And
the
so
word.
it's a one-time
It is.
grant
It's
of
nice.
$10,000, and the sign stays in perpetuity.
And they maintain it. Well, they maintain it.
Yes.
So,
Maintain it. And it does elevate our status within the foundation.
10 grand.
I also think Mr. Feinstein would probably be more apt to donate more money as he used to, because his name.
But is that a policy of the grants, or?
No.
No. You get the 10 grand for the name. It's a naming right, essentially.
And we're not like, it's within the school committee's purview what we put on our schools?
Yes.
Okay.
And we don't have a policy on naming rights.
No.
for instance.
Just making sure.
10 grand will have one.
We do know. If you give us a $10,000 grant.
That's why I brought it to you again, because we never had
No, and
anyone
we don't
offer.
need
For instance, the library
Right.
building fund, ahead of time, they'll tell you if you want your name on this item, it will cost you this much.
That's maybe down the road where we can go into,
Well, we did that at Fort Barton, don't we have,
we have bricks.
Suzette,
Oh.
don't we have bricks at
Oh,
Fort
those-
Barton
those
that
were-
were naming
yes.
rights?
We have the bricks that are in the front,
Right.
and we've maintained those.
Yeah, so, I mean.
I
that was a
think calling
playground
it a Feinstein
fundraiser
Leadership
for the-
School is significantly different than saying it's Xerox Middle School.
Oh, no,
or,
that's different.
Oh,
you
yes,
know,
I said, it's not
Hewlett-Packard
advertising, it's
High or-
recognition.
It is.
It's
It's
a
recognition for good deeds.
Yes.
Right.
So, could you,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Mr. Burgundy?
No, I'm fine.
I'm fine. All those in favor?
thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Paul.
Thank you.
thank
I
you.
also have to say real quickly, our middle school was just the 8th grade, over 3,800 hours this year.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Community
I know.
service.
That's great, thank you. That's good.
It is
And
amazing.
my goal is to up that next year.
You go.
Thank you, Luann.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Textbook approval?
Yes, Carol asked to have this item placed on our agenda.
Yes, it came up in conversation recently that not all the teachers and parents are thrilled with our new 6th grade science textbook. And I realized I had never seen it, and I couldn't even speak to the process through which it had been selected and approved, although we do have a policy in the books that says
Very
that
outdated,
textbooks
yeah.
will come to the
We're
school
supposed to put
committee
them on
and they'll be
display for a period
displayed.
of time.
So, my request was to learn what process we now use, how it was developed, and when we moved away from the written policy and why. and then to ask the committee whether we should consider changing the written policy to match what has been taking place, or whether we want to retain some portions
The policy,
of the written
to
policy.
answer the first part, I've been here 15, I hate saying, keep saying that. I've been here 15 years. We've never, when I was principal, or later on as superintendent, it's never been followed.
So that predates you.
It predates me. I think the policy goes back to 1994, or maybe around there, but it predates me. I don't remember any books ever being put on display, textbooks, to say, we're going to buy this series. Historically, it's been department heads at the high school, they want to go to a series for social studies. They would go to the principal and the curriculum director and say, we'd like these. And this was before we were really aligned to, Common Core and everything. And it was pretty much I would approve them. As we moved to a more, to the Common Core and to that curriculum, Diane has played a larger and larger role to make sure what we were buying. Diane and I and the principals wanted to make sure we were buying what the kids were going to, need for the testing. Did our curriculum correspond with that? So the process that you see here that Diane presented is pretty much one we've been following for several years now regarding books. Another reason why we never really followed it is that we never really we haven't been buying, we don't have a lot of money dedicated to buying brand new series. In other words, we usually buy replacement books and things like that. So we're not really buying a whole new math series, although we will be once we get a feel for this new Common Core and ELA and things like that. We'll be making bigger purchases.
Although I know it came up at least one other time since I've been on the school committee that we questioned this policy then, that either we need to change the policy to reflect what we're doing, or we need to enforce the policy that we have, because I guess I'm not in favor of just having a policy and ignoring
Right.
it. So either way,
I think
I'm
we need
uncomfortable
to-
with
I think
picking
we
and
need to
choosing which
revise it.
policy.
Revise it.
Okay.
I think this is, we need to.
I'll add it to my list.
One more thing.
Well,
on the
this is
policy
something, what
committee.
Diane has here is very policy-like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much what we do.
Okay.
I think involvement of the school committee in choosing textbooks is ridiculous. And I think
There was a contract. I think if some-
I would just like to add that I certainly do not want to substitute my judgment for our curriculum experts and our subject area experts. However, I do think that there is some role for sharing with both the school committee and the parents and the community that supports the schools what our new textbooks will look like and why we have the need and what they will offer our students.
Sure.
And so it's more of an educational value of displaying the textbooks and inviting community members or parents to view them
not so-
rather than
I
substituting
don't-
my judgment for anyone
I'm not
else's,
so much-
Mr. Burgundy.
I think when we developed the policy, I'm not so big on viewing. I mean, if you guys would like to see copies of what we purchase, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, obviously, but when you open it up, then we're the folks that we're paid to make those decisions and
Right.
recommendations to you. And I don't, we'll
Yeah.
share obviously with you folks what we do, but when you start opening it up, not that we have anything to, I think we should inform our parents, say, hey, starting in September, if we're going to be using a new math series. This series is, here's the rationale for it. There's more information can be found at
Right.
this
Right.
website. I completely agree with that we inform our parents, when we make those shifts, absolutely. But to say we're going to keep them on this whole, and quite frankly, I'm not sure if it would even be practical.
Yeah, I think it's more like when we do the handbooks, where we make sure that we inform people, we
Yeah.
have a discussion that we're
Right.
changing. My preference would be to make sure that we have in the policy that we're making sure that the teachers and that they have
role.
enough time to look at it, that it's not, okay, come down and look at the book and you've got 4 hours and I'm going to choose. That I would have an issue with.
No,
20
I would
minutes.
too. We would too.
Right, so
You know, and-
I'm more
And since we
interested
rely,
in seeing the policy, making sure
and
that
since
we
we've relied so heavily, as well we should, with our teachers in developing the curriculum, their input is going to be just as critical, you know, in the, you know, getting their ideas as far as what kind of texts or supplementary texts we would need to buy moving forward. Because we will be making a large investment in the next year or two in math, as soon as we can get our finger on what's the best program that we need to purchase, but we will be doing that in the near future. I guess it's something that we make work for the three of us. It really is an item that we need to revise in our policy.
Right, because like I said, my bigger issue is let's not have a policy that we ignore, because then all we're doing is encouraging people to pick and choose, and we're setting precedent. Well, you don't have to follow that one because you know, this person
Nobody else
didn't have
has
to
for a
follow that
year.
one either.
I understand.
so.
Thanks.
And it also, if we approve the procedure that's currently being used, that's been laid out so nicely, it's just another check point
Yes.
to say, this is the new textbook, and yes, I can report back to you that we did
And-
A, B, C,
and
and
we
D
should,
as,
and-
for
and-
every textbook,
and-
because sometimes
And we're remiss.
somebody may be tempted to rush
Yes.
a process or something, and this is just a way of assuring that
This is the way
the
it is.
carefully thought-through process is
absolutely.
followed every time.
And we're remiss because we're going in 18 different directions, and, you know, we just simply, you know, it's just simply something we would need to do a better job of bringing it to you and following the
Well, and
process.
honestly, it's already laid
Right,
out.
to say
so
this
it's a
is what we
nice-
do, and-
It's an easy change.
You know,
I think
and, you know, and it really is, because Diane's done
Did
a good job
with
of.
that.
So everyone's in agreement that we're going to change it from what we have?
Right,
Yes,
To
Okay.
this.
yes.
Yes.
okay. That's good.
No need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Okay, Carol?
Yes.
Okay.
So we will
I added it.
write that.
We
up.
just need to pick a couple of dates.
We do.
Okay.
We're going to
Okay.
be busy in
We'll
July.
be busy.
All right, and then we can, I guess it's still unclear to me, and we may want to discuss this, whether the committee should take a formal vote to endorse the textbook that has been selected, or whether it's just a matter of, before the order is placed, the curriculum director will
I'd
inform
like
the school
Diane to-
committee.
yeah, but-
I mean, either way, but
Can Diane just speak to that issue, the textbook itself?
Yeah,
Do you
there's
wanna?
a couple of things that are a little bit of variables here. It used to be that the textbook served as the curriculum, so they were really important decisions because it was a resource that teachers used on a daily basis. And now, the standards even call for students to gather information from a number of sources. So we're not as reliant on the textbook, we're more reliant on a curriculum that gets us to the standards. So sometimes we're not purchasing a big year-long textbook, we might be purchasing a book that will supplement or support a couple
Or
of units
units,
that we're using. We might be getting some other resources, we might be using online resources. So I guess that we would have to think through, to what extent do we come to you for?
right,
approval?
so it may be a dollar amount, because the other thing, textbooks, if you buy the
Well,
whole
and
textbook,
that's
are
also
major expenditures. So, right, if you're spending $2,000 for supplementary materials, it's not the same as if you're
Right.
spending $55,000 on
And
textbooks.
something we've talked about, and that goes along with the tech policy committee that's working, is that we would like to move away from the actual text and have it so kids can, yes,
No.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
We have a new building. For Pete's sake, we have to fill it with something.
That's the town, we're not gonna talk about that. But ideally, you know, when we make these purchases, they'll still be expensive, because you gotta buy the
Right.
software and everything. But that would be that's where our goal will be, is so that we can move away from those big clunky textbooks, so kids can, whether they have them here in
iPad or-
school or
Although
at home, they
I've
can
read that
access the
they're
books.
actually more expensive when you buy them for an iPad because, or an e-reader, because it can be, you don't own them forever. Let's say, they're sort of leasing you the content.
Right, but we're not even there yet, but
Right.
that's kind of like where we want to go.
Yeah.
But, you know, and what's the other issue on those
The
books?
other,
But in this particular
Right.
instance, the science, that was a book, that was not supplemental material.
Those have all donated to
was,
us, too.
right, and
It was a book.
Yes.
we had a very tight timeline to get our resources for science, and a lot of difficulty finding
Again,
them.
I
That's
just, we
one.
need to either follow policy or we
We
don't.
didn't.
I mean, I don't, I just.
We
It
didn't.
can't be ignored
Can't
sometimes.
be ignored sometimes and enforced
agree.
others,
No,
and we just need to write
We
it.
will.
If we want to change, let's change it, because like I said, I know this has come up before. It came up when I was first on the school committee, and I don't want to be in a situation where we have to say, the superintendent isn't enforcing a policy that none of us even like. So, so let's just change it.
Will do.
What was your other point, Diane?
I think it was that if we're going to a series that's going across multiple grade spans, obviously that's a much bigger purchasing decision, and we want more input from yourselves and from parents as well.
But in what capacity your parents are going to advise you if this is a good or bad choice? Except being informed.
Yeah, I think I'm looking for more informative.
It's more informed, but part of what we do when we look at any resources, we look at what is the parent component. A lot of the things that we purchased recently have online parent pieces, they have parent
It's
information.
information more than input.
Homework helpers, things like that, so it's just a thought.
That's more
But
almost after the fact. In other words, we would inform the parents that these supplemental materials are available, to help you with your child's homework. And that goes back to what Carol was saying before about informing and updating, which is what we need to do.
We made a decision, that's what we use, this is the best tool.
Right.
As we see it
And
as
we'll be,
professionals.
Right.
There is a component where you can participate and help the child, and here is a training, couple of sessions for those who are interested to see basically. how
Right,
to
and
use
which we would do. We'd roll it out and
As
open it
opposed
to
to having
parents.
democratic process in choosing the tool of the trade.
No, it's
and
more
that's-
informational.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, Carol?
Yes.
Okay. Student handbook, high school?
Yes, high
Just in
schools.
time, Mr. Fizette?
Well, the high school student handbook is relatively simple. Shorts are not allowed unless they fall, he wants to delete what you have here in page 9, that's underlined, not the whole paragraph, but just what's underlined. Right here,
Yes.
it says high school.
So it's all those.
Yes.
Recurring issues in
Unless they fall
schools
below, I know
across the country.
I know this isn't an academic issue per se, but it's one that's important as far as
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Dress
running
It
dress
really is,
code
yeah.
and maintaining
So we're
appropriateness.
replacing what's
Underlined.
underlined and in bold.
And then replace it with shorts are not allowed unless they fall below
This whole
fingertip.
thing?
Right.
Okay.
And I think that's a reasonable,
Years ago, when we put in the micro shorts, they tended to be the exception. Now the retail industry has not made them the exception anymore, so they're kind of the rule. So we're gonna, that's
No.
essentially what we're saying.
these are old people pants.
Right.
And having the policy, again, is only one piece of the puzzle. Who's in charge of enforcement? That's the trickier
staff.
issue always.
Well, that's why when you say,
No shorts up front, and then the explanation I'm hoping that's gonna draw attention to the fact that you can't wear shorts.
Unless.
as you see
Unless
them now.
There, this.
On retailers' shelves in abundance, 90% of them.
the
You're
enforcement,
gonna have to make an effort if you want to wear shorts. I guess that's what we're trying to, hopefully the message will do a little bit more. Reinforcement is everybody's responsibility.
absolutely.
Okay, so students are not referred to guidance, it's individual
They are-
teachers?
They are in nurse's office, they are. Yep.
Okay.
And to you?
I'm sorry?
Do they come to you also?
They
They
can be,
I'll speak to them briefly
Yes,
about it,
definitely.
Mhm.
My daughter used to leave the home in one thing and show up in something else, and
Well, the problem
We
is
got
how
the
is
calls.
it going to work with lack of air conditioning and
don't.
90-degree temperatures in classrooms? We'll have long pants and
Well,
Knee-length
they can wear
skirts are
shorts.
quite cool.
Wear shorts.
they can wear shorts, they just have to be a certain
They
length.
can't be too short.
no short shorts.
I get it.
Okay?
We talked about air conditioners last time, okay?
Now, the middle school one, we just got some new ones,
Yes.
so do we want to wait?
No, I
Do
think
we
we,
need to take a vote or not on the high school?
yes, I would,
the
I would-
fingernail, and I would.
I would like you to,
half.
to accept the.
I noticed you're wearing shorts this evening, Mr. Vagani.
Oh, my goodness.
They fall
That's appropriate.
Very nice.
So don't tilt, you can't
I
tilt.
don't get- What about the length of the hands versus
That's
short?
what I said.
You got long hands, you're good to
Very
go.
short
Denigrated.
But if you have a lot of
I don't know.
That's right, that's right.
They'll be good basketball players if they got arms.
violation.
Would you
What
like
if they're
to,
like this?
would you like to vote
They
on
got
that?
alligator arms, how are you?
Okay.
Make a motion
We
to
digress.
I'm
approve.
certainly not going to question Mr. Fizette's change. I will make a motion to approve the change to the handbook.
Second.
Second.
Oh, we digress quickly.
All those in favor?
Who's making the
Me,
motion?
Carol.
And
And then Sally?
second it. Chinos in the button-down shirt would be nice. All those in favor?
Oh, Sally.
Go ahead. No, you're not in favor? You're against?
I abstain.
Oh, you're abstaining, okay, that's fine. Okay.
There
Now,
are,
you want to do the middle school? We
Yeah.
just got some new ones.
I think we can,
I think I would prefer to read through
you want to
them.
wait?
Yeah, because we just
Okay.
got some new ones.
We'll put them off till August.
Is there?
Is there time for you to do
If
it
we
then?
have questions for the current ones, I guess we'll just wait and do them
Yeah.
all at once.
Yeah.
Will there be time for you to prepare it for school?
Lori?
We, in terms of the handbook changes, we can't order our agendas for kiddos, till our new language is approved.
I know.
Well, so they'll be late. I mean, how long does it take?
get them online quick.
We can get it online, but the actual hard copies wouldn't be in until the fall.
Well, then I would suggest if you feel you absolutely have to order them, you order them without a vote from the school committee.
They can't do that.
I wouldn't recommend that. We'll
I-
just
I
have,
think
what
don't
we'll do
handbook
is,
changes have to go through the school committee?
Yeah, they do.
what we can do is we can have it online. We'll have it online in time before school starts. We will reference in a newsletter, Mrs. Mitchell can send out in her newsletter these changes, to parents to make them aware that these changes are now in place after you approve them in August, if that's acceptable to the committee.
So the books would be printed with the old?
No, I
No,
would
they
say
just
there'd be
do
no
the
books.
And we'll just have it online until they get the books.
And then when opening day comes, they just talk to the kids and say, here are the changes to the handbook from last year, and then go from there. If they're going to be that
Okay.
late in
Okay.
arriving. So we'll wait.
So would it be easier to do, I guess, to do all the questions at once?
Yeah, let's hold.
Because I do have some.
So the handbook is separate. Do students still get an agenda at the middle school?
They do.
Okay, and is,
In the agenda has been the handbook as one thing that they always carry around, so it's quick reference.
right. And so what we will do then is buy the agendas without the handbook, is that your recommendation?
Yeah.
And we'll issue the handbook separately, which has also been done in the past.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you can do that.
Is our shorts policy
That one's all
consistent across
done.
all the grades? Because,
Well, you
now
can
we might
review
have-
the language,
review the
language and
language.
bring it back to, in August.
We'll have that answer in August.
In middle school?
Yep.
God, I hope it's the
Okay.
same.
Enrollment projections?
Actually,
Mr.
theirs is much more.
I'm not trying to make a joke out of this, but we
It's-
start
no.
regulating things which are just absolutely so ridiculous. I think it would be up to school principals to decide what's, I don't know if our approval is needed for, obviously this is very
for
similar
handbook,
to
yes.
what's legislation.
It
we have
is,
in Providence.
it is in the sense that it's similar to,
Well, it's setting policy.
Right.
So you want to set policy for things like how we select a coach, but you don't want to set policy for bicycles and proper attire and who gets to go on a field trip and who doesn't.
No, but
I mean, you're being kind of
clothes, I'm
choice.
talking about
Well, I know,
clothes
but
and,
Well,
all right.
no, this is a
It's-
valid
it's
discussion. I mean,
appropriate.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
fine if you
appropriate.
want to
It's,
do
we're
this.
setting policy.
I'm just expressing my personal opinion, which
Well,
I'm
and you
entitled
have
to, and-
you have absolutely every right to do
because
so.
without a
I'm used to it,
written,
I'm
without a
just-
written policy, there's nothing to enforce,
Well,
and a
that's the
student
thing
can
is,
come to
that's
school
what
wearing
happens.
whatever they want.
And they
that's
say
the
it's
issue.
not a policy, where's it written?
Yeah.
And the parent asks you that, That's what happens with us.
They need to be able to point
Unfortunately,
to the policy.
in our society, we have to
Yep,
have
you need
these
to be able to
rules.
say here,
Right
it says
here.
this here,
And
we
even
let you
then,
know ahead of time.
and even then,
Yeah, I know.
you point to it and they can still run you up the flagpole. But it-
Right, and I mean. and
But
we-
it's better to obviously, we
Right.
need these things in writing.
Okay, enrollment projections, please, Ms.
Yeah,
Wheeler.
first grade enrollment projections. Currently, we are over the cap by 2 students. I'm meeting with the elementary principals tomorrow to see if we can move around. So you can see where Cassett has a little more space to
So you
move.
redistrict first some first grade
Yeah, but we
students?
really, what we're looking at is Picasso has, 1 space, because they can only take 23, that actually has 4 spaces. And the other 2 are over. So even if we move them around, we can alleviate maybe Fort Barton a little bit, but if these numbers keep trending, we're probably going to need to hire somebody.
And moving kids around isn't as easy as you made it
It's,
sound.
no, and I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
It's not.
It is.
And I,
It's
believe me,
upsetting.
when my principals tell me, we'll just move these people around, and I go, it's not that simple. Believe me, I know, because Elaine and I take the phone calls.
No,
Um,
it's hard.
And the bus
Because
routes
it
are
becomes-
impacted.
It can become a busing nut.
Yes.
It does, and it has. So what I'm asking for is approval to post for a position if these numbers continue to trend. Because right now, with 2 students, if nothing changed, we could make it work. Or even with the union being over cap, we could work it out where we have to pay some extra funds because we'll be over. But we could sustain 2 over. We can't sustain 6, 8, 10,
Yeah.
kids.
What's the funding, Doug?
It was about the budget.
I would have to take a look at next year's budget and come back with a proposal on where the funding would come from for an additional.
Because we're talking about how much with benefits?
What grade do you think?
Be
Plus
first
benefits?
grade, you probably could get someone without a master's, steps 1 through 5, probably run you about 60, 70,000 total.
With benefits.
With
okay.
benefits.
Or we can wait. I mean, it's entirely up to you, the committee. I just wanted to make you aware of this, number one, that we're over right now. I mean, I can wait
Oh,
until.
no, and I mean, we don't want large classes if we can avoid it.
And
I just want to make sure we have the funding source.
Well, if we keep spiking, we're gonna need to go out and hire and find the money.
I
So-
mean, maybe it's potentially, we're not there yet, but when we get to 6H, shifting or not doing some of that, I mean.
Is this an increase over our current kindergarten enrollment? And we often see that, right? Because parents.
We normally
send
max out,
students-
for the last, Lane, 4 or 5 years, we've been at 6 teachers in first grade. So we've been able to cover, the numbers have matched. We've been about 134, 135 coming from kindergarten to first grade. But this is more, I think we're at 123 right now in K, somewhere around there, and now we're looking at 138. So we've seen this spike.
Could you ask parents in the school whether there's an over-enrollment? Are there some volunteers who
Well, I
do
would-
not plan to bus the child, but it's going to pick up and drop off the child? and-
That's what we're gonna be talking about tomorrow, to try to make those numbers a little more balanced, and that's really what we do.
Some people may
When I say move, we really ask to say, would you be willing to?
So you'd be asking Ranger and Fort Barton parents to move to
Some,
Pecasset?
we'd try to find a couple to go there, that's correct. And that would still put us over. That still puts us over. And depending on the families, you can't ask a family that's at Fort Barton now, that's down on the southern end of town, to say, now we're gonna shuffle your 6-year-old to Pecasset. So you're really looking at a limited number of kids based on where they live, so you can make that, you can offer that proposal. And even then, would be over. And again, that's no number if we didn't move. It's June 27th right now. I can't believe those numbers won't go up.
Right.
To what, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'd be shocked
Typically,
if
we
they...
see,
Stop coming in.
And come mid-August, and it might not
Yeah.
even be until
Right,
mid-August.
they start coming in.
'Cause that's when you start to see the registrations.
So when do
Get
you,
people moving
when
in.
would you make the call? Because you have to advertise it, you have to
Interview.
interview. When would you make the call?
It would depend on the numbers. We'd watch them weekly, and we watch them all the time.
Can you
and-
get someone in that quickly? I guess in this environment, perhaps.
If we posted, I mean, if I knew by the end of July, we could probably have someone in by September.
Oh, okay.
That's optimal. That's pushing it. But we could put a team together and get someone hired.
You have ability to have like an emergency hire?
Yeah, we could put an emergency sub in, and then do
Oh,
the...
until we got somebody.
Until we
permanent.
get somebody. But I'm just trying to, I'm asking for the pre-approval only to give us a little more time if these numbers do go up quickly. So in other words, I don't have to wait until the second week in August to say, okay, we're now 8 over, can I post now?
Could we,
Or I can do that, I can do
could
it.
we potentially, and I mean, we're not there, maybe we should move that up and talk to them. Could we potentially hold the facility study until we know whether we're gonna need a teacher or not?
We can't move our money cap. Oh, yeah, we can, because that's out
Yeah.
of surplus. Yes, we could. To
And-
answer your question.
And then at that point, wait on the facility.
I was gonna
If
make-
we need one, wait on the facility
I was
study
gonna-
until we know we have extra money or.
I was
Doug can
gonna
look
make the
for better help.
recommendation to hold on the facilities because
that
of...
would fund this.
Because of the sewer,
Oh,
Yeah.
to sit tight. I was gonna recommend we just keep
Well, it kind
that,
of works for both of the projects.
you know...
so it works for both.
I would
both of them.
we're not there yet, but maybe we are.
Yeah.
But I would not wanna expend that money for that study until we
Well,
get...
actually, it's the next thing.
Right, until we get the
So
sewer...
let's go ahead and talk about
Okay.
them both, yeah.
Let's move to the facility study
Okay.
then.
And then we'll come back and
We'll
revisit
come back.
this, because
That's fine.
maybe we can kill
Yep.
two
Yeah.
birds
Okay.
with one stone there.
Okay,
And 3.
let me just go right to that one. H. J. Be nice if I could have it.
Oh, okay, so you've pulled it out, 6-8?
Yes. There's a 6H on the second sheet. I got the list of things. Then on the second backup sheet, you can see Doug's, I asked him to do this so we could understand where we are. Our request, to date, we've already expended $137,840 for the computers and the auditoriums
Yep.
seats. Fire suppression, the gentleman was here today, and they're gonna be beginning next week.
And we don't have a choice,
No,
that's.
so that's,
So those
those
two,
would-
one's done and one.
two are done, and we're committed to the third.
Okay.
Everything else below that is really things that we would like to get because we have a surplus.
Well, in some cases, the security system, some of them are
Yes.
highly recommended.
Yeah, well, some are like this, right, the fence, the security system at the middle school to upgrade that
Probably the
to where we're happy, and the backstop, Bobby Murray said we had to have, the new things.
And
those are the smaller items.
Those are the
so-
smaller items, the things that we really
the
need.
facility study, but I guess my concern is sounds like we really need a teacher more, so that we could hold off on the facility study as we get more into the year and Doug becomes more comfortable with the numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
we
I'm
can
not
still
gonna
do
be
that.
comfortable until that work's done.
That's
Right.
right.
I keep going back to that construction, because it always is more, I don't want to say more expensive. You really have to monitor the project, which we'll do. And that ledge concerns me because of all the rock that we pulled out for the Ranger School project and the high school
And
project.
for the field and the tennis
Oh,
courts.
and-
It's like a glacial land there.
So with the potential for that, and then the
The 50,
potential for another teacher, we really
I
need to
think
just kind of hold
that in
on.
light of in light of, because when I devised the capital plan items, we didn't think we were going to be, muscling over the $400,000 mark by $250,000.
Although we do really need that. It's just when.
But we can do that anytime.
Right.
We can go out to bid anytime for that, so that's not a priority by any means. But I mean,
And certainly some of the higher priority things for what we need to have in our capital plan, we can get from our own facilities guys.
I'm sorry,
We
from
can
our
get
what?
from our own building people. Like, we don't need a facility study for all of our caps. So
No.
I know the budget committee wanted to start talking to us in August about our capital needs. Well, certainly we have roofs, we have some of them
Yeah.
that we can at least start with until we get this.
Well, for example, right here, I mean, that curtain, I mean, with everything we just said,
Right.
that curtain in the cafeteria, it's, collapsing inward. When it's standing straight up, it collapses inward in places, and, excuse me, it's really something that, out of all of them,
Well, you've prioritized the safety and security issues and.
Right, on the bottom.
On the memo.
Yep.
Of which the study isn't one of them.
right. Or the boys' lockers, I mean, I don't think that's something we need, but it's, again, I keep putting it off, but in light of what we're looking at, the only thing I'm really comfortable spending right now are those new items that we have listed as new.
The last four,
The
yeah.
security system upgrade, the fence backstop, and the hot water tank linings at the middle school and the high school. And that's to keep us functioning.
Right.
And we can always come back and look at the lockers, not the
Right,
lockers,
afterwards.
the grate and the lockers later. But I want to try to keep as much free capital, in
Right,
that surplus.
Until that's done.
Because of that ledge, and the teacher, potential need for a teacher.
All right, so what's the committee's feeling then on given that?
I can come back, I mean, I wanted to let you know that that's a first grade problem. I have no
So you want to
problem.
come back and give us an
I have
update in
no
August?
problem coming back in August, if that's okay, if everyone's comfortable with it, that's fine.
Well,
'cause-
no, it's good to have that discussion because it impacts what we approve.
Right, because we're
That's
we're two over now. We can, as Jan pointed out, we can get a long-term sub.
Right.
If we can advertise for that right away, as soon as we make a decision, if, how we're gonna pay for it. Posting, obviously, would be a little longer, but, we could handle it that way, but these are all intertwined, as you can see.
So you don't feel we need to approve those four new small items
I
tonight?
would ask that you do.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will make the,
How about that curtain?
that's a
I mean, that
bigger
20
expense, though.
Steve?
That cafeteria curtain, I mean, how much longer can we keep
But
putting
it's
that off?
25,000.
It's
Oh, 17, I'm sorry, 17.
Yeah, but how much longer can we keep putting that off is my question. I mean, the thing's gonna collapse.
It's environmentally, it's a big issue too, as far as what it looks like. If we go to the open steel curtain, we're looking at airflow continuously through there for everyone, for
That's
our
how much I
advanced
said.
students. We're looking for much better better security, and I believe what Bill's probably hinting to, we're looking at something that was reinstalled back in the 1980s, and it's seen a lot of cafeteria wear, without going into detail.
No,
So
we
I'm
should-
wondering if we do the four new and then.
If you did the grate and the four new things,
Comes to $31,088.
Comes to $31,088.
A lot of those items, in fact, all of them lend themselves to being summer projects as well, so they don't have to.
That's right.
Okay.
Nobody's
so that would
here.
leave us with about 64,000 in reserve.
For the teacher
Plus-
slash contingency for the.
It would give us 220,000 in reserve roughly, right?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say 64, we have more than that.
No, but if you subtract,
Oh,
no,
from the 95.
from the 95.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And it would leave us with about $250,000 in cash, uncommitted for
Right.
the
So about
construction.
225 plus it would leave the 64 to either cover
Right.
that or potentially a new
Yeah.
teacher. Pat, I'm pointing to Bill, he's not there.
Yeah,
The,
Bill.
Sewer, Bill.
Sewer bill.
Okay.
So so the teacher I'll put on hold.
Yep.
You want those
Okay?
four,
Let us know
You're
in
aware of
August.
that, and
Right.
I'll bring that back in August.
and you want those four in the curtain?
And I would like the four items in the
And
curtain.
And it's 31,888.
3108.
31,088.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve capital request items totaling 31,888 as outlined for the high school curtain, the new security system at the middle school, the new fence backstop at the middle school, the new hot water tank lining at the middle and the high school.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Okay, that's good.
And last, but certainly not least, the home teaching approval request. This is our standard home teaching request. I'm just asking for approval. The parent has submitted the paperwork.
Everything's in order?
Everything's in order.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Reports and announcements?
Mrs. Mitchell mentioned it earlier, eighth grade graduation was held Tuesday. It was well done. The children were dressed appropriately, acted appropriately. The parents were very happy, and
It's lovely.
Lori did do a good job, and Dave and her teachers in really streamlining it. So as much as it wasn't choppy and it didn't
No, it
go
was very
longer
nice.
than it needed to.
Oh, and Mr. Furrish, I'm sorry, welcome.
And I
Should
did
have
talk
done that
to,
right away.
and for
Thank
those of you who were there, Mr. Ferris wore a suit.
He did.
And I had to tell him that, when the temperature's at 140
You're
degrees.
exempt.
You're exempt, so. But being new, we wanted to set a good impression.
He did
so-
look very
And
nice.
He did. And I'd also like to announce that the 2013 Boosters Award was awarded to Mrs. Black the other evening at the Boosters dinner.
Thank
So
you.
her and Tiger gladly accepted
Yes,
that award.
it was a really big surprise. I was just sitting there, and of course Tiger was on my lap, and so they were talking about this person that goes to everything, and that, and I'm thinking, oh, isn't that nice? I wonder who that is. And really, they said my name, I went, but I was glad Tiger was
Sally,
with me.
whenever they say that and you're in a room,
I know. So I was glad
I look in
Tiger
the
was
mirror.
there, and I went up and I explained that during graduation, he had to stay in my purse because it was quite a dignified affair and he couldn't be rowdy. But I said, but tonight he's coming out, and I lifted him up, and when you squeeze his toe, he sings Eye of the Tiger. So all the
There we
kids went
go.
crazy. And my son said, you got a standing ovation. I said, no, I didn't, it was Tiger. But I was very honored to get that, thank you. And Mr. Fazette? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Just a couple of staff members I'd like to acknowledge. Mr. McKinnon will be heading up to Lake Placid on Monday for a two-day conference, national conference on the life of an athlete. It'll be funded by the Tiverton Coalition. It's basically an international speaker, policymaker on school policy and codes for athletes. So just to revisit and get some information about what other states and other countries are looking at regarding athletic codes and et cetera. We have a first-year teacher, Jason Douglas, who's been involved all year with Brown University's Arise program, which is a PD program for Rhode Island science teachers. And Jason, through that program, has gotten us approximately $1,300 worth of free science equipment for our AP classes next year.
excellent.
We have advanced inquiry labs for AP chemistry. We also have an electronic scale coming in. Additionally, we'll have 3 new AP teachers next year, of which they will be receiving training over the summer and at the beginning of next year.
Excellent.
Deb?
Well, we have something from Jack Reed.
Yes, I gave you a copy, but I didn't, but I
Oh,
don't have a
So he basically
copy.
is saying, we have a bill submitted to help you pay for your SRO, but
This
it's being held in
is in
study.
response to the letter
That you wrote.
that the
With-
chief and
with
I
the
sent
chief.
out,
Oh, okay.
and I just wanted to share with you
Oh, good.
the fact that we did get a
That's great
response.
that he's going to stay on top of it, because he'll try to make sure.
It's good that,
happens.
and I'm sure all our senators, our other senator, White House, and
Terrific.
our reps are busy, but it was nice to get the letter
Yeah.
from Senator
And
Reid.
we'll have to
That was
remind
very
him.
nice.
And
Yes, when you see them in your,
when I see them, I'll
See them.
chat with them. And also, I went to the Fort Barton graduation, and it was very elegant. And one of the best parts was, besides receiving their diploma, certificate, they got a medal, and the kids were so excited. And they also got a medal for perfect attendance, and it was so cute. And some of them went off with 3 or 4 medals, and they were just so thrilled. And I think it's a very nice thing, because when I went to the Little League closing the other day, they all got their medals. Some kids may never play sports, and I think we have to show that academics are just as important as sports, and give these kids really, that it was just so exciting to see them. They were so thrilled.
Which, by the way, Mrs. Dice Mitchell, I love the tiger paw awards that you gave out. Very nice, or Fox Paws, excuse me.
Fox.
Fox.
They were new this year.
The
Very
Fox
nice.
Paws.
I said the Fox Paws, very nice, very nice.
And the fox came to graduation, and he was very hot, and Mr. Rarick wouldn't even share his water with him. Very upset. I kept telling him the fox was very hot, and he wouldn't give him a sip.
I didn't pick it up, sorry.
Is that it?
Okay, anybody else?
We're not going to do executive session, we're going to wait for Jerry.
That's
Jerry's
fine.
gonna be here.
That's okay with you guys?
Is that okay?
That's fine. Good.
Motion to adjourn?